Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Now my brethren, these are your days in the history of the church. Mark well what kind of days they will be. Days when with special visibility the Lord will make bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations. God will also hasten his work. He will also shorten the last days for the elect's sake. Hence there will be a compression of events. I did a recent video called A Compression of Events, Capital Cities, all within the last 3 weeks. I would highly encourage you to watch that. I had noticed that there were several capitals, state capitals, national capitals, that had been hit by different disasters or things going on. And that struck me as weird. And so I asked if I should put together a list, if I should like do some kind of tracker to see if I can keep track of capital cities across the world whenever disasters happen, and decided to do it. So that's what this video is going to be about, and I have a few more entries to add to the list. So we're going to be looking at, I think, like 4 or 5 different cities that I haven't talked about yet. But first, I want to show you this new spreadsheet that I made. I'm calling it, the title of the spreadsheet is Timeline Capitals. So again, remember the link for my spreadsheets is in the description below. If you go to any video and you click on the description box, there's a lot of stuff in there. And you can find my spreadsheet right here. Click on this. All my information is available online. You can't change the spreadsheets. You can only view it, but you can copy and paste onto your own documents that you have for your personal study and stuff like that. Also, I'm starting back up with the members only content. It's basically going to be that portion of my channel where I put the overflow videos, because there's always just so much happening. And so some of the shorter videos and just additional content is going to go on members only. You can also click on this link right here, join members only, to join that. Okay, so before I show this to you, as always, I want to give you the update on the Flood the Earth Challenge. We're at 6,160 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far as of today. We have one new person that has joined the challenge, which brings us to 618 participants. And I would just encourage you to keep moving forward. If you've already shared a Book of Mormon, ask or think back if you've shared 10, because that's the channel goal. Try and hit 10. Go through your phone and your contacts. Think about people that would stand to benefit from a copy of the Book of Mormon, people that aren't members of the church, or maybe are less active or inactive, and send it to them using the Gospel Library app. Go to Scriptures, and then you'll see a big share button at the top where you can send them the Book of Mormon app. And then once you do that, let me know. Just put it in the comments or send me an email with hashtag flood or just the word flood, so I can search it and quickly find your comment or your email and then update the spreadsheet here. Okay, so I decided to do a separate timeline that focuses only on capital cities. And this is similar to my other, timelines and spreadsheets. I have the year, the actual day, like the day and the month, the capital city, the country, state, or province that capital city is the capital to, the event itself, and then in column F, I have the reference. Now, this took a long time to do. Excuse me. I referenced, the articles that I had already pulled up, but I realized that I needed to do more, especially in the case of the Canadian wildfire smoke. I'll show you why. Let me pull up Zoom Earth. This is probably one of the better ways to observe the wildfire smoke. Okay, so this is the satellite image. Let me just go back a few days. You can kind of see, you see the bulk of it right here. It seems like most of the smoke is in northwest Canada. but you can differentiate between the clouds, which are white, and the smoke, which looks like smoke. It's hazy. So if we go back just a few days, you can see a ton of it just coming down like a river into the United States, going as far south as Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi and even Louisiana. Here's a pretty dramatic one. This is the one where I first kind of noticed it, where there's like this big Nike swoosh kind of shape to it. And you can tell it looks pretty darn thick. I mean, look at that, right? And so the article, or the couple articles that I read, they mentioned a few cities, major cities, a couple capitals, but I realized, you know what, I need to actually look at Zoom Earth. I need to see kind of like the extent to which the smoke traveled. And as you can see, it hits up a lot of different states. You have North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, okay, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I put this together that I really realized the extent of this event that's happening. And I don't believe anything like this has happened before. I know for a fact that Canada has not had wildfires this large before. This is the worst wildfire season for Canada. So I can only assume that the smoke that has resulted from that is probably the worst that it's ever been as far as smoke coming down into the US and covering such a large swath of the country. So I had to go through manually and look up each of these states and their capitals and try and find the news stories, because I'm not going to just put something on here without you being able to validate it. That's the whole point when you're doing an essay, when you're doing a study, when you're doing anything, you need to be able to reference your material and tie it down to an authoritative source. It has to be tied to reality. Okay. And so if you want to look at, if you're questioning any of these, I've provided you with where I found it in column F for each and every single one of them. And it was quite monotonous, let me tell you. So I have these color coded. So this gray smoky color indicates the Canadian wildfire smoke. And I'm zoomed out. Maybe I should zoom out even more. Let's go to 50. So each one of these rows represents a capital city. So I'm not including major cities that are capitals. So for example, even though I talked about the Kansas City area because independence will become the New Jerusalem, I don't have that here, and I don't have Kansas City here. I don't have New York. I don't have Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, places like that. Only capital cities. If I were to include major cities as well, it would probably double this, if not more. Okay, look how tiny this is. Look how far zoomed out we are. And by the way, this starts, my spreadsheet starts on the 30th of May. So this is all within the last couple months. Okay, just weeks, really, if you think of it in terms of weeks. I don't know how many weeks exactly, like, I don't know, 8 weeks, 9, 10, but a couple months. Okay, so I, look at it. Let's just look at it. Look at all that gray. Okay, let's zoom in. Let me just give you the quick rundown. Okay. So we got Halifax, Nova Scotia, Boston, Massachusetts, Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Albany, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Trenton, New Jersey, Little Rock, Arkansas, Annapolis, Maryland, Augusta, Maine, Raleigh, North Carolina, Jefferson City, Missouri, Dover, Delaware, Jackson, Mississippi, Winnipeg, Manitoba, St. Paul, Minnesota, St. John's of Newfoundland and Labrador, Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Ottawa, Canada, so the capital of the entire country itself, and I think that that's significant. I think that these are all significant because they're capital cities. I've already discussed in the previous video how if the Lord wants to send a message to his children. One of the most effective ways is to do it through these major cities, capitals, and then also major cities. But I'm just focusing on capitals. But the national capital of Canada, Lansing, Michigan, Springfield, Illinois, Providence, Rhode Island, Lisbon, Portugal, on the other side of the ocean, Madrid, Spain, even further. Again, here's the Atlantic, here's the United States, there's Canada. You go all the way in the heck over here. Here's Portugal, and here's Madrid, Spain, even further east than Lisbon, Portugal, down here. Okay, smoke was seen over there. It was over there. It's insane. Concord, New Hampshire, Montpelier, Vermont, and we all know that Vermont has also been hit by flooding, which I also have on this list. Des Moines, Iowa, Richmond, Virginia, Indianapolis, Indiana, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Okay, Springfield, Illinois, not only had the smoke from the Canadian wildfires, but it also had that derecho. The derecho is basically an inland hurricane. It's not really. But it's kind of. It's basically a really strong thunderstorm system that travels a certain amount of speed. I already forgot how fast, but it's like hurricane strength winds, and it travels for a long way. Well, there was one that hit Nauvoo, Illinois. I did a video about that. Just search for Nauvoo or go back a few videos. And it also hit the capital of Illinois, Springfield. Toronto, Ontario, Victoria, British Columbia. Okay, Zaragoza, the capital of the province of Zaragoza in Spain. There was crazy flash flooding. I showed some video from that, and it was just absolutely insane. Okay, continuing with the wildfire smoke, Whitehorse, Yukon, the flooding in New Delhi and a lot of places in northern India. I didn't bother to go through and look for those provincial capitals. Maybe I'll do that some other time. It was already enough just to do what you're seeing here, so maybe I'll get to that some other time. Here it is, Montpelier, Vermont. In Ottawa, the capital of Canada, there was a rare tornado in its suburbs on the 13th of July. Continuing with the smoke, Regina, Saskatchewan, Topeka, Kansas, had that crazy thunderstorm that left Kansas, Lawrence, and the Kansas City area, as well as other small towns in that area. Many people out of power, more than 200,000 people out of power, lots of downed trees, snapped trees, uprooted trees, and wind damage and stuff like that. But Topeka is the capital of Kansas, so it just got hit. Okay, Canadian wildfire smoke, Bismarck, North Dakota, Pierre, South Dakota, Charleston, West Virginia, Edmonton, Alberta, Madison, Wisconsin, Columbus, Ohio. Okay, now we're getting pretty much to just last few days because now we're on the 16th of July. Today's the 19th of July. So Salt Lake City had its daily temperature record broken and road buckling occurred. And I can't remember if I read it in the article, but I was looking over it again today, and it wasn't just that one place on Redwood Road. There were a couple other places where there was road buckling that occurred. But anyway, they got up to 106 degrees Fahrenheit, broke that temperature. This is new. Oh, dang, and I don't have the story up, the article. Okay, well, that's fine. Sacramento, California, 109 degrees, which broke an 88-year-old record. Okay, for the article made it seem like it was like hottest temperature ever experienced there, so not tied down to a particular day or month or anything like that. But yeah, that just happened a few days ago. So Salt Lake City, Sacramento, which is the capital of California. Oh, is that the wrong color? No, I was just looking at the red for too long, and then this looked blue. Nashville, Tennessee, with the Canadian wildfires. That's just 2 days ago, so this is like still ongoing. Lincoln, Nebraska. Quebec. Atlanta, Georgia. That was yesterday. Okay. Atlanta, Georgia. Montgomery, Alabama. Okay, there are fires that are in the vicinity of Athens, Greece. I actually have a story about that. Wait, do I? Yeah, I do. I'm going to show you some of that. Phoenix, I'm going to have to update this, but as of right now, it has broken the record for the consecutive number of days that have been at 110 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Let me do it like this. At 110 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. And we looked at the forecast. Let's just look at it again since it's a new day. Phoenix forecast. Let's go to, oh, look, they have an excessive heat warning. I wonder why. Okay. Weather channel, please pull up. 10-day. And it still doesn't look very good. So I think today would count as the 21st day. Let's just be conservative. Let's say today is the 20th day. I'm not exactly sure about that. So tomorrow's the 20th. Okay, so we're at 20. Okay, so 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. 29 days, possibly 30 days consecutive. Temperatures above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't remember what I had said in the previous video about what the previous record was, but it's been shattered. Already right now, if we were to stop today, it's already shattered. But this is just brutal. Going this number of days more, something pretty historic is happening in Phoenix right now. All right, going back here. Okay, also another record that was broken, the all-time warmest low. You know how like when you look at a certain day, so say for example tomorrow the high is forecasted to be 116 degrees and then the low is 86. So if you take the high and the low temperature of every day, that's what they record. And so the low, they had the warmest low of all time of 97 degrees. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so, and then this brings us to some brand new ones, which I won't read them here. I will just read the stories. So we are going to go from west to east again, the same pattern. So we're starting out over here with Phoenix, Arizona. There was a new interesting story that came out, and I'm going to share this with you. So this is from Meir. U.S. city is world's first area to be quote unquote uninhabitable without air conditioning, says meteorologist. So, is this just hyperbole? Is it adding to the climate hype? I don't know. I mean, obviously things are going to return to normal for a time, but whatever. I'm just going to entertain it. I'm going to entertain it. So it says here, an alarming claim has been made by a meteorologist who said that an American city has become, quote unquote, one of the first places in the world to be deemed uninhabitable without air conditioning. Laura Tobin said that Phoenix, Arizona is the worst off area as it is currently battling a severe heat wave, with almost 1 in 3 Americans under some form of heat warning due to the deadly La Nina phenomenon. A dangerous 19th straight day of scorching heat in Phoenix set a record. The city's record streak of 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43.3 Celsius or more stood out even amid sweltering temperatures across the globe. No other major city, defined as the top 25 most populous cities in the United States, has had any stretch of 110 degree or 43.3 degree days or 90 degree or 32.2 degree nights longer than Phoenix. There shows a billboard with 118 degrees. And this is a common sight, shirtless people in Arizona. Probably more so than anywhere else I've lived. I've lived in Utah, Arizona, Kansas, and Texas, and Spain. And I think Arizona takes the cake. So, okay, now we're moving on to Croatia, Bosnia, and Slovenia. So, zoom out, come over here, across the Atlantic. And On the east side of the Adriatic Sea, just across from Italy, you have Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia. So this is the area that we're talking about. And look what happened there. After days of heat, a powerful storm sweeps Croatia, Bosnia, and Slovenia, killing at least 5 people. This looks like Topeka, Kansas, or Kansas City with what just happened over there. No, where are my highlights? Doggone it. Okay. Oh, that's nice. I think I remember where I had highlighted. Thanks a lot, whoever, Google Chrome or Le Monde France. 2 men died in Croatia's capital, Zagreb. Okay, so another capital city that's been struck with some kind of disaster after they were hit by falling trees, Croatian police said. A 50-year-old man was struck while outside in the street, and a 48-year-old man was in his car, a police statement said. Earlier, emergency doctor Ljubka Hitrova told the official HINA news agency that the 2 victims had multiple head injuries. Okay. The storm suddenly darkened the sky and brought blinding rain, flash floods. Seems like there's a lot of that going on with the flash floods. Like seriously, there's been so many flash floods and winds across Zagreb, the capital city, starting about 4 p.m. It halted the city's transportation, caused power outages, and left streets blocked with fallen trees. It sounds like just like what happened in Kansas City, in Topeka. Zagreb's emergency services asked citizens to be patient as hundreds of calls for help came at once. Quote, we are appealing to the citizens to call only in a life-threatening situation or of utmost necessity until the situation stabilizes, Zagreb Mayor Tomislav Tomasevic said on Twitter. Okay, later, so that was Croatia, okay. Later it says authorities, authorities in Serbia issued a warning to citizens. So now we're talking about a different country now. To citizens as the storm moved east. Wind gusts swooshed through Belgrade, the capital, on Wednesday evening, swirling leaves and dust as people scattered to seek protection. Parts of the city were left without electricity, and Belgrade airport temporarily closed down. A video posted on social media showed a huge crane falling, which I don't know. That always terrifies me. It's just tall things falling. It's scary. Okay, so I have those right here. Okay, I don't have anything about Bosnia because it didn't mention anything about the capital. I also didn't do the extra research, but for right now, anyway, we're going to have Zagreb, Croatia, and Belgrade, Serbia. 2 more national capitals that have been affected. Oh, and by the way, before I move on, I should have brought this up earlier. Let's zoom out. Let's go to 75. Okay, all these different cities. Da 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 da. I was curious how many U.S. state capital cities had been affected. How many Canadian territorial or provincial capitals had been affected in national capitals. So I tallied it up, and this is where it's at. So for the United States, 30 out of 50 U.S. state capital cities have been affected within the last several weeks to a couple months. That feels like a compression to me. Again, I was not aware in the slightest. I guess I just didn't put it together how vast this smoke situation is. Like how far reaching and how many different cities are being affected. There's sometimes that things happen that are so big, it's hard to comprehend it because it requires a lot of analysis of a lot of data. So, um, and there's something kind of beautiful, by the way. There's something kind of beautiful when you actually go through the monotonous process to record things. I'm sure you've done it at some point in your life when you're just like intimately involved with these like little pieces of data. You're organizing them, you're collecting them, you're whatever. It's like I don't know, you just get that much more familiar with what's going on. And like I said, This just blew me away. I don't know what your thoughts are. Put them in the comments below. But I mean, seriously, that's over half of the United States. If you're going, if you're, not necessarily by population, or I'm just talking about if you're counting the number of states and state capitals. Over half has been affected by the Canadian wildfire smoke. And then for Canada, I counted 11 of the 14 provinces or territories that were affected, their capital cities. And then 4 national capitals that I'm aware of have been affected by the Canadian wildfire smoke. So this list is probably, well, I don't know. I feel like I did a pretty good job, but I could be missing a couple, so it could be even worse than this. Um, but it is at least this bad. Okay, it's at least this bad. Okay, so anyway, so that was Croatia and Serbia. Now we're going to talk about Athens, Greece. Wildfire in Greece close highways. Oh, sorry. Wildfires in Greece close highways and threaten an oil refinery as the European Union sends firefighting planes. Okay, so we're going from this region over here down to the southeast. We're talking about Greece, specifically Athens, right here. Okay, so what's going on there? Fast-moving wildfires swept across hills in the searing heat outside the Greek capital on Tuesday, forcing authorities to close highways to help protect an oil refinery. Water-dropping planes and helicopters flew low, though a blanket of smoke tinted orange by the sunset, to try and contain 2 wildfires to the west of Athens before nightfall. The European Union pledged additional assistance, while forecasts indicated more extreme heat was on the way. And then they gave some indication here. Obviously, I think different countries have different standards when it comes to reporting wildfires and stuff like that. In the United States, we have this really neat, and I don't know. For all I know, maybe each country has an equivalent of what I'm about to show you. But let's see, U.S. wildfire activity map. I really like this thing. It shows you the hot spots around the world, but for inside the United States, you can click on an individual wildfire, like say this one right here. Looks like that's in Oregon. It looks like that's probably the largest wildfire at the moment. Let's take a look at it. You can click on this and it'll tell you how much, what percent it is contained. So compared to, like large wildfires, this isn't really on the large side. It's only 12,756 acres, and as of right now, it's 0% contained. So I wish that there was like that standard across the entire world, and I'm not aware that there is, but the only sense that I can get as far as like these Athens wildfires go, it says here wildfires continue to burn out of control Tuesday to the north and west of Athens, including a blaze near the resort town of Loutraki, where more homes were damaged and evacuations were expanded. So I'm going to assume that when they say out of control, maybe that means 0% contained. I don't know. But there you have that. And by the way, another thing I should mention, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, let's just look at this picture, for example. As I was going through all these different news stories of all these different capital cities, a lot of them actually did have pictures of their respective cities. Whether we were looking at Halifax or Des Moines. In fact, why don't I pull up a picture for that? Des Moines, Canada wildfire smoke. I could have sworn that I saw a picture of Des Moines. Yeah, okay, here you go. Look at this. Let's do this one because there's not a shirtless guy in this one. This is the Des Moines... No, there he is. There he is. They can't help themselves. Let's look at this picture. You guys, when we're talking about wildfires, A wildfire is an event that can darken the sun. I say again, in New York, there was a quote that I read when I did my first video about the Canadian wildfire smoke, where or there was a tweet where this guy said that they couldn't tell that the sun came up or where it was because the smoke was so thick. The sun was darkened, and the moon turned to blood. I would suppose, like depending on how thick the smoke was. So when you have more than half the country in terms of state capitals that are experiencing this, where the moon is turned to blood and the sun darkened, it doesn't matter why or how or if you can explain it. It's happening. It's happening. And, you know, I don't know of any other phenomenon that's happened that would be this large, like to this scale. You could say, blood moons, like lunar eclipses, because the entire Earth could see that. So you could say that. But as far as like both things happening at the same time, I'm not so sure if there's been an event this large. And I don't know if there's any way for me to know that. But that's something to think about. Again, I would ask you to remember that this is the largest wildfire season in Canadian history, recorded history. And 2 years ago in Russia, they had their largest wildfire season. So these are two very large countries geographically. And so I would think that those would be the two events that would provide for the most people having that experience of the sun being darkened and the moon turned to blood. Aside from an eclipse, but an eclipse would only focus on one or the other. Either the sun is darkened because it's a solar eclipse, or the moon is turned to blood, so to speak, because it's a lunar eclipse. But for those two celestial bodies to have that effect at the same time, it would probably have to be wildfires. Possibly volcanoes. We did have, excuse me, we did have the, I always forget it, the Hunga Tonga Punga. Let me just look it up. Tonga underwater volcano. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai eruption, which was terrifying. It is the largest explosion seen on Earth. So not in space, but on Earth. It even exceeded nuclear bombs, even the largest one. Okay. So this is another event that sent a lot of, obviously a lot of volcanic ash and dust into the sky. I might have to look into that because this is also another good candidate for an event that would darken the sun and turn the moon to blood. So, okay, this is really kind of intriguing me. So within a very short period of time, from January 2022 until now, there have been many, many people that have experienced that. Okay, that might be something to think about. I'm not going to be so bold as to say that that is the fulfillment of that scripture, but or those scriptures, because there's several that talk that way. Okay, so moving on now from Greece. Now, guess what? We're going to Moscow. Of all things, like when I started to just do a quick search, I went to Flipboard, which is one of these like news site apps. I was just like, okay, is there anything else going on today that I can quickly just like pick out and then add to this video? Well, like I said, there was. I just shared those with you, but this is the last one, and of all places, it's Moscow, Russia. Right now, as we're speaking. Okay, so first we're at NDTV. Pictures: torrential rain turns Moscow into Venice. The Russian capital, Moscow, was hit by flash flooding. How many places are going to be hit by flash flooding? You know, there's been some in Japan, India, China, um, Vermont, and you know the Northeast in general, but especially Vermont. Um, Zaragoza, Spain, all very recently. This is insane. The Russian capital, Moscow, was hit by flash flooding on Tuesday as heavy rains poured down over the capital. So it has some pictures here, and not quite as dramatic as Zaragoza, but let's read some of what it says here. A torrential downpour in Moscow has caused flash flooding, leaving residents running for cover on the streets and trapping people in cars and buses. Now, that is something that we saw in Zaragoza. Let's just remind ourselves really quick. Let's go to the Guardian. No, let's not. Let's go to images. And, well, okay. This is like a famous girl now. Not really, but not only her, I showed a video. Well, let me just go to my I'll go to my Twitter. Fine. Fine. I'll just go to my Twitter. We'll do it this way. Oh yeah, this is in India. You can see that guy trapped in his vehicle. Here's Zaragoza. So that poor girl stuck on top of her car like a cat, trying to avoid a bath. But this one's even more dramatic because that same girl, before that point, she had been surfing on that car as it went down what should have been, well, what is a road, but had been turned into just a crazy scene. Look at these other people just basically surfing on top of their cars. These people apparently were caught unawares because it looks like they were in the car and they're like, okay, well, the best thing, let's get out of the car, I guess. So that's fast. It's fast, fast, fast. You know, this is another great visual. You know, kind of like that video that I did a little while ago about the second coming and how fast it's probably going to be. You know, you see some indications at first. You know, in the case that the example that I used before, it was the explosion at the Beirut, Lebanon. It was the Beirut, Lebanon port explosion. Started with a fire, and then the fire turned into an explosion, which made the fire even bigger when it hit like a firework area, storage area, and then it ignited the rest of it, and essentially, well, it was the third largest explosion in an urban area, like man-made explosion in an urban area after Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? And none of those people expected it. They saw a fire, and then they saw a bigger fire with even more smoke, and then all of a sudden it was too late. And it's the same thing here. Although these people may have had maybe a little bit better of a warning just because they knew that there was rain, did they expect that this could happen? I don't know. Like I've said, I'm not really familiar with Spain in Europe being a place where you have crazy flash flooding events like this, but so who knows how prepared these people were. But I feel like this is a fitting metaphor for the second coming. It may in fact be why this is happening, to teach us this lesson. Like, get ready right now. Be prepared spiritually. And then after that, physically, but most importantly, spiritually. So back to Russia, trapping people in cars and buses. Okay, so that's what I just showed you. That's basically how that can happen. It's very fast. According to the Russian news agency TASS or TASS, I don't know, the damage caused by Tuesday's torrential downpour in Moscow may amount to dozens of millions of rubles. president of the Russian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Sergei Katrin, said. There's another picture. A guy riding his bike in water up to his knees. More than a quarter of the average monthly precipitation fell in the span of an hour. More than a quarter of the average monthly precipitation fell in the span of an hour in some of Moscow's districts on Tuesday. These people are standing on like a wall, part of a building, taking video and pictures. Many roads were flooded. Later, the city's authorities warned about another wave of rain that may be even heavier than earlier in the day. Let's look at Zoom Earth really quick. Okay, let's go to present. So right now in Russia, it is nighttime. And here's Moscow. And there's some clouds. So maybe it was just hit by this thing right here. I'm not so sure I can see anything else, but I don't know. Maybe something is incoming. Let's see. That's it for that one. This article, the Moscow Times, it calls this an unusual event. It says, here's a look at scenes from this unusual weather event. And then it has a whole series of pictures that you can look at. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how often it flash floods in Moscow, but I've never heard of that before. I don't know if you have. And then here's another article. Watch central Moscow's streets turn into rivers after extreme flash floods. So I'll leave this in the description below if you wanted to check it out. So everything that we've just talked about, has happened since the 30th of May. That is a lot of freaking stuff. And we're only talking about capital cities. We are not including other major cities or small towns or medium-sized cities or anything like that. Just capital cities. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best to try and keep on top of this tracker. It's going to be impossible to keep track of everything, even with it narrowed down just to capital cities. So for that reason, I'm probably just going to focus on capital cities because if I start adding in like larger cities like New York and whatever, it's just going to be too much. If there are really big major events that happen to a major city, if it's like really big, I'll put it on my main Second Coming timeline. But this will be to capture some of these like smaller things, just to kind of keep tabs and see what's happening to our capital cities and see what the Lord might be trying to tell the peoples of the world, through their capital city. But please, I would invite you, if you come across an article that has to do with a capital city, or if you know of any previous event that has happened to your capital, the capital of your territory, province, state, nation, let me know. I'll go back in time. It doesn't have to be anything new. I'll go back as far as you want. And then once I've collected enough, then I'll do a new video to give everybody an update, but feel free to send those my way. Don't send it ideally, don't send it in the comments, especially if you have a link, because YouTube has an algorithm that automatically blocks comments if it thinks that it's spam. And whenever you include a link, usually it does flag it and then it removes it. So if you have a link, the best way is to send it via email. Don't do it through my social media. That's not the best way to communicate with me. I'm sorry about that. I'm flooded with too much communication from people. So just do it by email. So, okay, there you go. There's the updates. So we'll see how the rest of this year goes. And if this is right, if this is a compression of events, maybe it'll continue to be compressed as we go forward. Maybe it's just going to become a lot more frequent, in which case it's going to make it really hard for me to keep on top of all these things. But it also means that we're closer to the second coming, which is good. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Consider joining the members only. The link for that is in the description below. It's also on the homepage of my channel. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.